What color is this piece of construction paper? Nobody knows. But today we will, at long last, find out. Because this invention identifies colors. All we have to do is flip this switch on the back and... Ever since I was a child, some 57 long years ago, I've been colorblind. Oh, the humiliation of being asked, "What color is this?" over and over and over. The travails of sorting my candy by color, happily oblivious to the wanton results my condition forced upon me. Only for some well-meaning passerby to point out the obvious miscategorizations and send my mind spiraling down, deep, deep down, into the welcoming embrace of brightly colored existential madness. Well, it's about time somebody did something about this. That somebody is me. That something is this tube. This tube will hold the color sensor on one end, and on the other will house the battery that powers the system. A 3D printed insert allows for insertion and removal of both. Designing it this way allows for a much simpler assembly process compared to components all being fixed to the outer brass housing itself. In addition, plugging in the cables of various components can be performed prior to installing most of the components into their final housing. Since we need some type of display to actually read out the color readings, we also need some type of brass box to hold that display. I like the idea of this whole apparatus looking like some sort of futuristic steampunk space cannon. And what does every futuristic space cannon need? That's right, some strange looking appendage that vaguely resembles a gun sight and definitely, always, looks cool. So, naturally, that's exactly where we're going to put our display. The controller housing box is formed from a piece of brass C-channel. The tube portion slots into the front of this box, using a brass plate soldered to one end of the tube. The control box houses the microcontroller and breakout board in brass, through another 3D printed shelf that is attached to the tube insert, completing the discrete electronics housing piece. To turn the C into a D, I attached a piece of steel sheet metal to the open faces of the C channel. I first soldered the oversized steel sheet to one face, then drilled holes through the steel sheet and into the C channel walls. These holes allow for peening some 2mm brass rod, fully cementing the steel sheet to the C channel and providing a bit of old-timey charm. The electronics I chose for this project are a mishmash of components I've had laying around in assorted boxes for a number of years. That doesn't mean they weren't all meticulously chosen for this job though, so let's get to know our crew. We've got the Adafruit Huzzah 32, based around the expressive ESP 32, the wisecracking but out of their depth edgy hacker, the brains of the operation. Too smart for their own good and can't ever seem to disconnect from the local Wi-Fi. Kids, am I right? The Adafruit Huzzah portion adds a built-in single-cell lithium-ion battery charger. The battery itself is an affair I salvaged from one of those cheap handheld USB-powered fans. A broken mess of a gift from my very generous broken mess of a cousin. Meet the SSD 1306, the looker of the group. And by that I mean the display, sporting a whopping 128 by 64 pixels of cage-free grass-fed organic LEDs for that oh-so-sweet reduction in power consumption. Just look at that sleek, uncontrollable color profile, yellow and blue. Surely there's nothing this screen can't display. The 7-segment 2.5 to 30 volt voltmeter. It's connected directly to the battery, displaying a sort of raw reading of the battery's state of charge. The real reason it's here, though, is because it's got one of those displays where you can input 80085 and bam, you've got yourself a pair of boobs. Welcome to the stage, the TCS 3200, the main event. This puppy has an 8x8 matrix of photodiodes, something akin to how a digital camera takes pictures, if that picture had the resolution of my left middle toe, that is. These are the photodiodes proper, magnified by something approaching 1,000 times, if you trust the advertising on these cheap digital microscopes, that is. The colors you can see, which I can also see totally accurately, I assure you, aren't from the diodes directly, but rather from the filters placed on top of them. Each type is interdigitated to minimize the effect of non-uniformity of incident irradiance. I mean, I know exactly what that means, surely. Let's quickly move on before I have to explain any further and you find out that I don't actually know what I'm talking about, and that I can't actually tell you which of these photodiodes is green or red. We're still missing the keystone of the crew. That one member who brings the blasé, cool guy, George Clooney-esque energy and puts the whole shenanigan together over some smooth, modern jazz. For that, I'd like to introduce you to... Hi, I'm John Perlybrook, and I learned how to crop edit. Do you like it? I knew you would. So, how does the plan all come together? Well, with a bit of hacking, a bit of soldering, and my favorite bit, of making a few friends along the way. Heh, but wouldn't you know it, while you were distracted ogling SSD's 1306, I snuck in the back door and already stole all the loot. But I'm not above gloating, so here's a montage of all the in-betweens that you missed.